I saved the Alpha King's pups while his Luna abandoned them. Now he declares I'm his true mate. The wind carried a chill that touched the bones, but Elira moved forward without hesitation. She had learned long ago that courage was not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be paralyzed by it. Elira's boots sank into the damp earth, leaving faint prints behind. The faint cries had guided her, soft, pitiful whimpers that carried a weight heavier than the forest itself. Her heart clenched at the sound. Any ordinary traveler might have turned away, attributing the noises to foxes or owls, but she knew better. There was something more fragile, more desperate calling out in the night. Finally, in a clearing hidden by thick brambles, she saw them, three tiny pups, shivering and alone. Their fur was matted with dirt and dew, and their small bodies trembled as though the cold itself had found a home inside them. They were unmistakably wolves, but unlike any ordinary wolves, they bore the marks of royalty, faint patterns on their fur that shimmered under the moonlight. These were no ordinary creatures. These were the Alpha King's pups. Elira knelt and reached out slowly, careful not to startle them. One of the pups, smaller than the rest, pressed its wet nose against her palm. Its warmth was a fragile ember, a pulse of life that whispered trust. "Don't worry," she murmured, her voice soft but steady. "I won't let anyone hurt you." The forest seemed to hold its breath as Elira gathered the pups. Her cloak offered little protection against the cold, but she wrapped them close, feeling the tiny heartbeats against her chest. She could sense their fear, the shadow of abandonment that weighed upon them. Somewhere in the depths of the forest, the Luna, the Alpha King's mate, had forsaken them. Elira didn't yet know why, but the truth mattered little compared to the urgency of the moment. Night bled into early dawn as she carried the pups through narrow paths and hidden streams. Elira knew the risks. The forest was home to predators, rival packs and creatures that prowled where the light could not reach. But she also knew she had a rare chance to protect innocence, and she would not falter. By the time the first streaks of sunlight touched the treetops, Elira found a secluded cave. The walls glistened with moss, and a small stream ran along one side. Here she could keep the pups safe, hidden from prying eyes. She arranged them carefully, murmuring words of comfort as she fed them scraps of dried meat she had carried. Their eyes slowly lost some of their terror, replaced by trust, a fragile, shining thing. It was while she watched them sleep that she first felt the weight of unseen eyes. Not the curious gaze of the forest, but a presence heavier, commanding, almost tangible. She stood slowly, turning in every direction, her pulse quickening. A growl, low and resonant, echoed through the trees. It was not far, but it carried authority, a sound that demanded obedience and respect. Kale, the Alpha King, emerged from the shadows. His presence was imposing, a towering figure with piercing amber eyes that seemed to look straight through the darkness and into Elira's soul. His fur gleamed in the early light, and every movement radiated power. He paused at the entrance of the cave, studying her with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You," he said, his voice a rumble that matched the forest itself. "What have you done to my pups?" Elira straightened, though her heart pounded. I found them abandoned," she said, her voice firm despite the fear in her chest. "They were alone, shivering. I couldn't leave them." Kale's eyes narrowed. "The Luna left them." His growl was low, restrained, but it carried the weight of a storm held in check. "She would abandon them." Elira hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I don't know why she left," she admitted. "But they need care. They cannot survive on their own." The Alpha King stepped closer, and the air itself seemed to tighten. Elira felt the full force of his presence, power, authority, and an unspoken intensity that pressed against her very chest. Yet beneath it all there was something else, concern. Deep, unwavering concern for the pups he had been forced to leave behind. "You have saved them," Kale said finally, his voice softer but no less commanding. "And in doing so, you have interfered in matters far beyond your understanding." Elira met his gaze, refusing to flinch. "I did what was right. Isn't that more important than rank or pride? Kale studied her for a long moment. The wind shifted, rustling the trees, carrying the scent of the pups and something new, something human. Elira felt as if the forest itself had paused to witness this confrontation. "You are brave," he admitted finally, almost reluctantly. "And foolish, but perhaps the pups needed your courage more than they needed me or the Luna." A shiver ran down Elira's spine. She knew she was in the presence of a king, a being whose word could shape life and death, but she also sensed a vulnerability, a shadow of pain that lay beneath his power. Kale circled the cave slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "They will not survive long without guidance," he said, voice low and intense. "And now, because of you, I am bound to watch over them again." Elira's heart skipped a beat. "Bound? What do you mean?" The Alpha King's gaze hardened. "The bond of protector, of mate. It is older than the forest itself. You have cared for what was mine, and in doing so, you have awakened something that cannot be undone." Elira's throat went dry. I did not ask for this." Kale's expression softened just slightly, though the weight of his authority remained. "No one asks for destiny," he said, almost to himself. "But sometimes it finds you regardless." The pup stirred, sensing the tension. Elira reached out instinctively, smoothing the fur of the smallest one. Their innocence, their fragility, made the Alpha King's stern expression falter. For a moment he looked every bit the king who had faced wars and rival packs, yet here, before a human, he was merely a guardian desperate to protect his blood. "You saved them from the cold," Kale continued, his voice quiet but powerful, "from hunger, from fear. And yet they may be the only reason you remain unharmed." Elira swallowed, the weight of his gaze heavy upon her. "I only did what I could," she said, trying to steady her voice. I will not let them suffer." A long silence followed. Kale stepped back, his eyes scanning the pups, then returning to her. "Very well," he said, his tone measured but commanding. "For now, they are yours to protect. But know this, protecting my blood is no small task, and it binds you to me whether you wish it or not." Elira's heart raced. She had expected threats, anger, perhaps even punishment, but not this. Not a bond she had never asked for, a destiny whispered into existence by her own courage and compassion. Kale turned away, his massive form blending with the shadows at the edge of the cave. "Stay vigilant," he said over his shoulder. "The forest is not as forgiving as your heart, and there are eyes watching you, eyes that do not care for innocence." As he disappeared into the morning mist, Elira held the pups closer. Their tiny hearts beat against her chest, warm and steady, and she felt a determination ignite inside her. The forest was vast, the dangers real, and yet she would not falter. She had chosen this path the moment she had knelt beside those trembling creatures. And somewhere, deep in the forest, the Alpha King watched, a shadow among shadows, wrestling with a power older than the earth itself. He had seen courage, and perhaps he had glimpsed something more, something that would challenge both his heart and his rule. The sun rose higher, casting long golden rays through the trees. The world was wide and filled with danger, but Elira had made her choice. She would protect the abandoned pups, and she would face whatever came next, be it shadow, curse, or destiny itself. And as the forest whispered around her, she could not yet know that the moment she had saved them, she had begun a journey that would bind her to the Alpha King in ways she could never have imagined. For somewhere in the dark, a low growl rumbled, a warning, a promise, a declaration. And Elira knew that this was only the beginning. The forest was alive with the whispers of the unseen. Elira moved cautiously, carrying the three pups close to her chest as the shadows of dawn stretched into the golden light of morning. The warmth of their small bodies against her made her feel a fierce responsibility. She had saved them from the cold and fear, but now another danger pressed near, one she could almost feel in the air, the gaze of the Alpha King, Kale, following her movements even when he was unseen. The pups had begun to trust her. Their tentative steps became stronger as she guided them through the streams and over fallen logs. She gave them names softly, murmuring them as she went. Luna, the smallest, always trembling, Brack, the boldest, who tried to explore too far, and Sable, the quiet, with deep eyes that seemed to watch everything. Each had its own personality, and Elira found herself smiling despite the tension that clung to her like the morning mist. Kale's presence, however, was inescapable. Every so often, she would catch glimpses of amber eyes watching from the tree line, or feel the forest tremble slightly under his movements. He had not spoken to her since the previous night, but his silence was a statement all its own. The Alpha King's territory was vast, but Elira had learned its hidden paths. She led the pups to a small grove where sunlight fell like liquid gold, illuminating moss and flowers in a way that felt almost magical. Here she could feed them safely, and Kale would be able to see she meant no harm. As she knelt to prepare a meal for the pups, the forest seemed to hold its breath. The rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs, and the distant call of birds were the only sounds, but then a soft, commanding voice broke the quiet. "You have grown bold, human." Elira froze, her hands gripping the small bundle of sable. Kale stepped into the clearing, his shadow stretching long across the soft grass. The golden light caught the edges of his fur, highlighting the strength in his shoulders, the intensity of his gaze. Every movement was deliberate, every step carrying authority. I am only protecting them," Elira said, her voice firm. "They are innocent. They cannot survive on their own." Kale's amber eyes softened slightly, but his voice remained measured, carrying the weight of his position. "The Luna left them for a reason. You do not know the burden she carries, the dangers she faced, and yet you chose to defy that reason." Elira's chest tightened. "I did not defy her. I simply chose to save life where I could. Can that be wrong?" Kale's gaze pierced her, studying her as though he could see every thought, every heartbeat. "It is not wrong," he said finally, "but it is dangerous. By taking them into your care, you have drawn yourself into matters far beyond your understanding. The forest does not forgive mistakes, and the enemies that watch us are patient and cruel." Elira swallowed, feeling the gravity of his words. She had saved the pups, but she had also drawn attention, Kale's attention, the forest's, and perhaps even the eyes of rivals who would see weakness and strike. Yet she would not let fear guide her. Not now, not ever. "You have something that the forest respects," Kale continued, his tone softer, almost contemplative. "Bravery, compassion, and a heart strong enough to protect what others abandon. That is rare." Elira felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Praise from the Alpha King was not easily given, and yet it came with a weight she could almost feel pressing against her chest. I only did what I could," she murmured. Kale stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. The air between them was charged, heavy with unspoken truths. What you did and what you risked, it has consequences. A bond has been awakened, whether you wish it or not. Elira's heart skipped a beat. "A bond," she whispered, the word trembling on her lips. "The forest recognizes those who protect its young. It's innocent," Kale said, his voice low, resonant. "By saving my pups, you have intertwined your fate with mine. That bond is ancient, older than the kings and queens who rule these lands. It is a claim, and it cannot be undone lightly." Elira's breath caught. She had known the forest was steeped in magic and ancient laws, but she had never imagined that her act of compassion would carry such weight. I never asked for this," she said, trying to steady herself. "No one asks for destiny," Kale replied, his amber eyes flickering with something deeper, regret, longing, and perhaps even admiration. "It finds you regardless of your desire, and now it finds you." The pup stirred, sensing the tension. Luna whimpered softly and nuzzled Elira's hand. Brack attempted to stand and explore, only to stumble back under her gentle command. Sable sat quietly, watching Kale with wide eyes that reflected a mixture of fear and curiosity. Elira's heart swelled at the sight. These creatures had survived against the odds, and they had survived because she had not turned away. Kale's gaze softened as he looked at the pups. They are resilient, he admitted, but they are still vulnerable, and so I watch you, human. Not only to see if you can protect them, but to see if you can endure the trials that come with such a bond. Elira's stomach tightened. She had sensed the weight of his words, the unspoken challenge behind them. Protecting the pups was no longer just about survival. It was about navigating a path intertwined with the Alpha King himself, a path that would test her courage, her heart, and her very identity. "You speak as though this bond is a curse," Elira said softly, searching his face. "Is it?" Kale shook his head slowly. "It is neither curse nor blessing. It is a force of nature, like the forest, like the moon, like the wolves themselves. It awakens loyalty, courage, and desire. It awakens truth, whether one wishes to face it or not." Elira's pulse quickened. There was an undeniable intensity in his presence, a magnetic pull that she could not explain. It was not fear exactly, but a tension that wrapped around her chest like the cold of winter. She wanted to resist, to deny it, but a part of her could not. "The pups are safe for now," Kale said, stepping back slightly. "But you must remain vigilant. The Luna's absence has not gone unnoticed. Rival packs stir, shadows shift, and not all eyes are friendly. They will test you, and they will test me. And through it all, you and I are bound by what has been done here tonight." Elira nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his words. "I will protect them. I swear it." Kale's amber eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, but the forest seemed to echo with approval. "Good," he said, his voice low but firm. "Because the road ahead is not simple. It will demand courage, patience, and perhaps sacrifice." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The forest was quiet, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft breathing of the pups. Elira felt the enormity of her choice, the depth of the bond that now tied her to Kale and his pack. And then, without warning, a distant howl pierced the morning air, a sound both familiar and ominous. Elira's heart leapt and Kale's posture stiffened. "That is not a friendly call," Kale said, his voice sharp now, the warning clear. "Someone watches, someone waits. And they know you are here." Elira's pulse quickened. She gathered the pups closer, her mind racing. The forest had always been dangerous, but now, with the bond awakened, the stakes had grown higher. Not only were the pups' lives at risk, but hers and Kale's. "Stay close to me," Kale commanded, his voice carrying both authority and concern. "Do not falter, do not trust easily, and above all, do not underestimate the forces that move in shadows." Elira nodded, though her chest felt tight with fear and anticipation. The journey she had begun out of compassion had grown into something far greater, something that would test every part of her. And somewhere deep within her, a spark of something unexpected began to grow. A sense of belonging, of connection, of a bond that neither time nor danger could easily sever. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows through the trees, Elira knew one truth with absolute certainty. Her life had changed forever. The Alpha King had declared her a mate, whether she was ready or not, and the pups she had saved were now the center of a destiny that would bind them all together. The forest waited, silent but alive. And somewhere in the depths of the shadows, eyes glimmered with intent, watching, calculating, and waiting for the moment to strike. Elira tightened her grip on the pups. She would not falter. She could not. For the bond that had begun in the quiet of the forest was growing stronger with every heartbeat. And soon, it would demand everything she had to give. The forest was thick with mist as Elira led the pups through winding paths she barely knew. The distant howl from the previous day still echoed in her mind, a warning that danger had noticed their presence. Each step felt heavier now, as if the weight of destiny itself pressed upon her shoulders. Kale followed silently, his powerful form moving like a shadow among shadows. He no longer spoke much, but Elira could feel the tension in his every step, the alertness in his gaze. He was a predator by nature, a king of the pack, and yet there was something more in the way he watched over the pups and over her. "They are resilient," Kale said suddenly, breaking the silence, "but not invincible. You must learn to read the forest as I do, or they will fall to forces beyond your understanding." Elira nodded, feeling both challenged and frustrated. "I may not be an alpha king," she said softly, "but I will not fail them. I cannot." Kale's amber eyes softened slightly, and he said nothing further. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of unspoken truths, of shared vigilance, and of a growing tension neither could ignore. The pups, sensing the gravity of the situation, stayed close. Luna clung to Elira, shivering despite the warmth of her cloak. Brack sniffed the air, alert to every sound, while Sable walked quietly, as if understanding the importance of caution. Elira reached down to stroke Sable's head, drawing comfort from the small life in her hands. The forest opened into a clearing where ancient trees arched high above, their leaves forming a natural cathedral. In the center lay an old stone altar, worn by centuries of wind and rain. Elira felt a strange energy here, something old, powerful, and alive. "This place," Elira whispered, "it feels different." Kale's gaze swept the clearing. "It is sacred. Few dare enter here. Those who do come often seek answers, but answers have a price." Elira studied him. "Answers about what?" "The Luna," Kale said quietly, his voice almost a growl, "and the curse that shadows her bloodline." Elira felt a chill run down her spine. She had suspected there was more to the Luna's abandonment than simple neglect, but the word curse carried a weight that made her stomach knot. Kale stepped forward, his eyes scanning the ancient stones. "She was manipulated," he continued, "by one who desires power, by one who wishes to see my pack fall. The pup's survival depends on breaking the spell she was forced to obey, and now that burden falls partly on you." Elira swallowed. She had never thought herself capable of facing supernatural forces, curses, or the wrath of rival packs. But she had saved the pups, and the forest itself seemed to demand that she see this through. "How do I help?" she asked, her voice trembling with both fear and determination. Kale looked at her, his gaze intense. "You already have. By protecting them, you have proven your strength, but strength alone will not be enough. You must face trials that test courage, loyalty, and the heart, and you must face the truths you try to hide." Elira felt a tug in her chest, a mix of curiosity and dread. She did not yet fully understand what Kale meant, but she sensed that her life, the pups' lives, and perhaps even the fate of the pack were intertwined with whatever awaited in the clearing. Suddenly, a rustle in the trees drew their attention. Elira's pulse quickened, and she instinctively pulled the pups closer. Kale stepped in front of her, a protective wall of power and authority. Shadows moved at the edge of the clearing, figures neither entirely human nor fully wolf, their forms shifting like smoke. "They have found us," Kale growled, his voice low and commanding. "Prepare yourself." Elira's hands trembled, but she stood firm. She would not let fear dictate her actions. The pups were counting on her, and Kale's watchful presence was both a reassurance and a warning. The shadowy figures stepped forward, revealing themselves as rogue wolves twisted by dark magic. Their eyes glowed with unnatural light, and their snarls echoed through the clearing. Elira could feel the malice emanating from them, a force designed to intimidate and overwhelm. Kale moved with fluid grace, positioning himself between the threat and the pups. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his amber eyes blazing. "Do not interfere unless it is the only way to survive." Elira nodded, though her heart raced. She watched as Kale's form became a blur of motion and power, striking with precision and authority. Each movement was calculated, every action demonstrating the strength and experience of a king. Yet beneath his ferocity there was control, discipline, patience, and a protection that extended even to her. The pups whimpered but stayed close, sensing Kale's command and the rhythm of his movements. Brack's small growl joined the clash, and Sable barked softly, as if offering courage in her own way. Elira knelt beside Luna, murmuring reassurance, her heart pounding in tandem with the fight unfolding before her. Minutes felt like hours. The rogue wolves pressed their attack, testing Kale's strength, but his skill was unmatched. Elira could see the fury in his eyes, tempered by a deep-seated loyalty and love for his pack. And in that moment, she realized something she had not allowed herself to admit. Kale was not just a king of wolves, he was a protector of life, a guardian who would risk everything for those he claimed. Finally, with a powerful roar, Kale drove the rogue wolves back into the shadows. They retreated, vanishing into the mist, leaving the clearing eerily silent. Elira exhaled, relief and awe washing over her. Kale turned to her, his amber eyes meeting hers. "You see now," he said quietly, "why the pups needed more than simple care. They needed protection and courage, and perhaps someone to show them a new path when their Luna abandoned them." Elira's chest tightened. "I only did what I could," she said softly. "I did not think about destiny or bonds or curses. I just couldn't leave them." Kale stepped closer, his presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "And that is why you are here," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Because the forest, the pack, and the pups themselves recognize your heart. That heart binds you to me." Elira felt her breath catch. The words were heavy with meaning, impossible to ignore. "Binds me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Yes," Kale said firmly, his gaze unwavering. "By saving them, you have awakened a bond that cannot be broken lightly. A bond of loyalty, protection, and something older, deeper than either of us fully understands yet." Elira looked down at the pups. They were safe, warm, and alive, and she had given them life where they had none. She realized that the bond Kale spoke of was not just about him or her. It was about the life she had chosen to protect, and the path that choice had carved. I don't know if I am ready," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I did not ask for this bond." "No one asks for destiny," Kale said, his tone softening. "But sometimes it chooses for us, and sometimes it chooses the heart that is brave enough to act when others falter." The air between them held a strange stillness, charged with unspoken truths and the weight of shared experience. Elira could feel the pull of the bond, a subtle force that intertwined their fates. Fear, admiration, and something deeper she could not name stirred within her. Suddenly the mist shifted and a glowing sigil appeared on the ancient altar. Elira's eyes widened. Magic, old and potent, hummed through the air, resonating with the forest and with Kale. "The Luna," Kale said, his voice almost reverent. "She was manipulated. The curse was placed upon her, and through her, it threatened the pups. This sigil is the key to breaking it, but it is dangerous. One touch can reveal truths you may not be ready to face." Elira stepped forward, heart racing. The pups whimpered softly, sensing the tension. She reached out, her fingers trembling as they hovered above the glowing mark. "Are you certain?" Kale asked, his amber eyes searching hers. "Once you touch it, there is no turning back. You will see visions of the past and perhaps a glimpse of the future." Elira nodded, summoning every ounce of courage. She had faced fear before, but this was different. It was not just the magic, not just the danger. It was the weight of fate itself pressing upon her, asking her to choose. Her fingers brushed the sigil, and a wave of visions surged through her mind. She saw Kale's past, battles fought, losses endured, and the weight of responsibility that had shaped him into the Alpha King. She saw the Luna, desperate and fearful, manipulated into abandoning her own pups. She saw herself, tiny, vulnerable, yet unyielding in her courage, holding the pups as the forest threatened to overwhelm them. And then, a glimpse of a future she could not yet understand. A future where Kale and she stood together, bound by trust, protection, and something far deeper than either could name. She fell to her knees, gasping, overwhelmed by the visions. Kale knelt beside her, his presence grounding, steadying. "Do you see now?" he asked softly. The bond is real, it cannot be ignored. Elira closed her eyes, trying to steady her racing heart. I see it, she whispered, but it frightens me. So much is at stake. Kale placed a hand gently on her shoulder, a touch both commanding and comforting. Courage is not the absence of fear, he said, his voice steady and certain. It is the choice to act despite it, and you have chosen courage. The forest seemed to breathe around them, alive with magic, shadows, and whispers. The pups nestled close to Elira, unaware of the full weight of what had just occurred, yet sensing the significance of the moment. And in that stillness, a new understanding formed. Elira was no longer just a protector of the pups. She was part of a bond that transcended fear, duty, and destiny, a bond that would shape the future of the forest, the pack, and herself. The mist hung thick over the forest as Elira and Kale approached the sacred grove once more. The air was heavy with the scent of moss and magic, a lingering reminder of the visions Elira had endured at the sigil. The pups scurried beside her, each step tentative yet confident, their trust in her unwavering. Elira felt their tiny hearts beat against her legs, and she knew this bond of protection, love, and courage, was the reason they had survived so far. Kale moved silently, powerful and precise. His amber eyes scanned the surroundings, always alert. Elira could feel the weight of his presence, like a shield she could lean on, yet also like a constant reminder that she was part of something far greater than herself. She swallowed hard. The bond he had spoken of was real, and every step forward deepened it, whether she wanted it or not. The curse still lingers, Kale said quietly, breaking the silence. The Luna was forced to abandon the pups because it threatened the very heart of my pack. The one who cast it sought to weaken me, to seize power through manipulation. We must confront them, or the pack will suffer forever. Elira's jaw tightened. Then we stop them. We protect the pups, and we end this. Her voice carried determination, though her chest still ached from the memory of the visions. Kale's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, a rare softness in the king who had faced countless battles. You have grown stronger, he said, almost approvingly. Bravery is not enough. This will demand trust, courage, and the strength of your heart. The forest darkened as they moved deeper, the trees forming a natural corridor leading to the rival's lair. Shadows clung to the edges, shifting unnaturally, and a low growl rolled from the underbrush. The rogue wolves that had attacked before emerged, their eyes glowing with unnatural light. Elira instinctively pulled the pups close, feeling the warmth of their tiny bodies, and Kale stepped in front, a living barrier of power and authority. "Stay behind me," he commanded. "Do not falter. The moment you hesitate, they will strike." The rogue wolves lunged, but Kale moved like a force of nature. Each strike was precise, each movement controlled, and Elira could only watch, awestruck, as he protected the pups with unmatched skill. The forest seemed to resonate with his power, bowing to his authority as king. Elira's heart raced. She wanted to fight, to help, but Kale's warning echoed in her mind. Then she noticed something, a flicker of light near the shadows, a sigil glowing faintly beneath the dark canopy, the same energy she had touched before. She realized in that moment that the key to ending this threat lay not only in strength, but in magic, in courage, and in the bond she now shared with Kale. She stepped forward cautiously, her fingers brushing the glowing mark, and a wave of visions surged through her mind. She saw the Luna, trapped and terrified, manipulated by a force that sought to destroy Kale's pack. She saw herself, standing tall, protecting the pups, facing fears that seemed insurmountable. And she saw Kale, not just as a king or warrior, but as a man weighed down by responsibility, haunted by past betrayals, and yet capable of trust and love. The rogue wolves faltered, sensing the surge of energy. Kale's amber eyes locked on Elira's, and she felt the unspoken understanding. The bond between them was more than a connection of heart. It was a force that could counter darkness itself. "Now," Kale commanded. Elira extended her hands, letting the magic flow through her, guided by instinct and trust. The sigil pulsed with light, spreading a warmth that pushed back the shadows. The rogue wolves shrieked, their forms twisting and shrinking as the curse unraveled. One by one they fled, leaving the grove silent except for the soft breathing of Elira and Kale. She collapsed to her knees, exhausted yet exhilarated, the pups nestled against her. Kale knelt beside her, his hand brushing hair from her face. "You did it," he said softly, his voice both awestruck and tender. "You have saved them, saved the pack, and proven your heart stronger than any force I have known." Elira looked at him, the weight of his gaze filling her with emotions she could barely name: relief, pride, fear, and something far deeper. I could not have done it without you," she whispered. Kale's hand lingered near hers, and for a moment the world seemed to narrow to just them and the pups. "We did it together," he said, amber eyes searching hers. "The bond is no longer a question of choice. It is reality. You are bound to me, Elira, and I to you. Not by duty, but by heart, by courage, and by truth." Elira's chest swelled. She had feared this bond, feared the destiny it represented, yet now she understood. It was not a chain but a connection, a strength that could not be broken by fear or uncertainty. A rustle from the trees drew their attention. The Luna emerged, her form cautious, eyes wide with shame and fear. She approached slowly, the weight of her guilt evident in every movement. I did not know how to fight it," she said, her voice trembling. "The curse, it controlled me. I never wanted to abandon the pups, but I had no choice." Kale's gaze softened, though his authority remained. "You were manipulated," he said. "The pups are alive thanks to Elira, and the curse has been broken. But understand this, the bond between you and me, between the pack and the future, has changed. It is stronger than fear, stronger than manipulation, stronger than absence." The Luna bowed her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "I see now they are safe. And you are their true protector." Elira's heart pounded. She had acted out of compassion, yet she now realized that her courage had forged a path no one had expected. The pups looked up at her, their tiny tails wagging, their eyes filled with trust and recognition. She smiled through tears, understanding that love, true, unselfish love, was a power stronger than any curse, stronger than any pack, stronger than even fear. Kale stepped closer, and the space between them felt charged with something ancient, something unspoken but undeniable. "Elira," he said, his voice low, resonant, "the pack recognizes your strength, the pups love you, and I cannot deny the truth. You are my mate, the one who has shown courage, heart, and loyalty beyond what I believed possible." Elira's breath caught. She had faced fear, darkness, and the weight of destiny, but hearing Kale's words made her pulse quicken. I do not know what to say," she whispered, heart racing. "You do not need words," Kale said, reaching out to take her hand. "Your actions have spoken more than words ever could. The bond is real and it is ours. Together, we protect the pups, the pack, and the future." The forest seemed to respond, the mist parting to reveal the rising sun, golden rays spilling over the grove, illuminating moss, flowers, and the sacred stones. The air was alive with a sense of renewal, of promise, of beginnings. Elira looked at Kale, then at the pups, then back at him. Her chest swelled with emotion she could not fully name, but she understood it was hope, trust, and a connection that could endure anything. Kale knelt beside her, his hand brushing hers, their fingers entwined. "You have proven that courage and compassion can overcome darkness, that even when the Luna abandoned them, life could be saved, that even when fate imposes a bond, hearts can choose to honor it freely. You are remarkable, Elira. In the pack of the pups, I am bound to you in every sense that matters." Elira felt tears well in her eyes, not from fear or sorrow, but from the depth of understanding, love, and relief. I am bound to you too," she whispered. "Not by destiny, not by magic, but by choice. By heart, by everything that matters." Kale's amber eyes softened, And for the first time, Elira saw vulnerability beneath the strength, the authority, the power of the Alpha King. He smiled faintly, a rare, human smile, and she felt warmth radiate through her entire being. The pups circled them, their tails wagging, their eyes bright. Luna, the smallest and most timid, nuzzled Elira's hand. Brack and Sable followed, forming a circle of trust, protection, and life. Elira knelt, embracing the pups and Kale in a moment that felt eternal. "You have changed the pack," Kale said, his voice quiet but filled with conviction. "You have changed me, and together we will face whatever comes next. The bond is ours and nothing can break it now." Elira rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of his presence, the strength of his heart, and the promise of a future intertwined. The forest seemed to exhale around them, the weight of shadows lifted, the air alive with renewal and hope. And yet somewhere beyond the grove, a distant howl echoed, faint but certain, a reminder that challenges would come again. But for now, Elira and Kale, bound by courage, compassion, and a love neither had expected, stood together. The pups, alive and thriving, circled them as a living testament to bravery, heart, and the enduring power of choice. The Alpha King and the human, once strangers bound by chance, now stood as true mates, guardians of life and witnesses to the power of love born from courage. The forest, ancient and wise, seemed to acknowledge it. The bond was real, unbroken, and eternal. Elira whispered softly to the pups, and Kale's hand rested over hers. "We are together," she said, "all of us." "Yes," Kale agreed, amber eyes shimmering with emotion. "Together. Always." The sun rose higher, casting the forest in golden light. For the first time in a long while, peace reigned, not complete, for the world was never without shadow, but enough. Enough for courage to shine, enough for love to thrive. Enough for a bond forged in bravery, protection, and heart to endure beyond fear, magic, and darkness. And in the heart of the forest, the Alpha King, the human, and the pups began their new life, united, unbroken, and ready to face the future together.